Okay, it's 9 o'clock, everyone. Hi, hi. So let's, hopefully everybody can hear me at the, that's online, watching us on the computer. And let me make sure I'm showing the screen. So go to show screen, hopefully. So share screen. And this is our lesson plan for today. And you can see we have, we still didn't vote on last week's topic on whether or not the EU, did we have this debate on Monday? No, we didn't do the debate, did we?
No, we didn't debate. We didn't vote.
Oh, we didn't vote though. Okay, thank you. So let me see if I can now go to the stop share screen, go back to polling. Let's see, polling is here. And so let's see if I can find the polls. And then it's doing strange things. And that's not what I wanted to do. And so let me just close that. And let me see if I can get the polls this way. Okay, so who won the week 6 debate on to South Koreans? The EU's response to the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic shows that the big member states still ultimately determine the direction of the European Union. So please, would you please, what did I do? Vote. So please vote. Who won the debate? Of course, we should have done this on Monday, but I couldn't find the poll. So just to see who the class's position is, and whether or not you agree or not, pro or con. So that's it. Okay, so share results, and so you see that the these are the results. So you think that yes, it is the big member states power the engine of the European Union, and that's an interesting statement. It fits with liberal intergovernmentalism. Remember, liberal intergovernmentalism really emphasizes the national interests of the member states as the driving forces behind European integration. So, and I guess I can stop share and just close that and go back to the lesson. So we have a big debate today. Look at that, 4 students. 4 students. Oh, I have to make sure I'm sharing the screen because I'm not certain if I am. So we go here, share screen like this. So yeah, back to share screen. And there you see, we have Melis and Clara against Nara and John. So that is, we have to make sure we have enough time set aside for that for the second hour, okay? And okay, great. So thank you very much for the students here assisting in setting this up. Like I said, I can't really, here's my laptop, but when I open it up on my laptop, it's in English. And it doesn't look exactly the same options as on the computer here. So it's hard for me to practice in my office. So thank you again for making this possible. So yeah, we have a big debate. So I have to make sure we set aside at least say 40 minutes for this debate. So like most of the second hour will be set aside for this debate. And okay, so we should, yeah, I forgot. You know what I forgot, of course? We've got to go to Cyber Campus. So let me see if I can do this without crashing the computer. And I'll go here and do the debate, thinking about the this. C.kr and it didn't. Why didn't www? Yes, that. I thought I typed in. So we go here and we go to Cyber Campus and log in, and let's see if. And 1 second. Okay, and no. And so when we go to EU policy making, and maybe it would be nice if it did default to English instead of. So where's attendance?
1 down.
Here, Chol Sok. Time for Chol Sok. And so we go down to week 7, we go add this one. Sumatu Chol Sok. Sumatu Chol Sok. Okay. Go! And your number is 6786. 786. So please enter in. Oh, I want to make sure we have the this showing up. 786 on smart on 786. That's your magic number. Okay. So please enter in smart attendance. Okay, and I guess I just let that run, and rather than just wait for that to go enter. And then we go back to the, we see this. Okay, so what do I want to highlight? Typically, okay, so we're now talking about policies and chapter 5, key policies. And so I guess we should talk about the policies because, of course, by the way, also you're all signing up for the Google Docs meeting session. So I will communicate with you by Zoom, and then so yeah, we're not supposed to meet in the classrooms next week. They don't want us to meet in the classrooms, and they also don't want us to meet week 9. So on week 9, we're not. I guess because they're still having midterms, we will not be doing this. It will be go back to 100% Zoom on week 9. So the week after midterms. And then we'll go back to this format for 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15 weeks. On Zoom, yes indeed. Okay, so that's the email I got. All right, so yeah, most of the European Union's policies responsibilities relates to markets. Yes.
Also, to her speaking that I don't know.
Does it what?
I think there's like the 2 more students. I think they're lost.
What, K338? Well, I don't know what what more to do. There's no Chinese students in the class. They're supposed to be. Okay, so so most of the European Union's responsibilities relate to markets. And that of course relates to the fact that the European Union began as the European Coalition Steel Community, right? And the beginning with the end of the Cold War, there was a big focus, not as a coincidence, on purpose. That we have to do more than focus just on business and markets. We need to focus also on everything that relates to that. And everything relates to business, right? Listen, you and I are social animals, right? We are beings that need social interaction. And most of our interaction is economics. When you think about economics broadly understood, for example, your careers. I mean, I'm interacting with you partly because I'm your professor, right? It's my job. I get paid to do this. If I do not get paid to be your professor, I won't be a professor. I need to make money. So the point I want to make is that 80% of our social interaction, 80% is economics related. Economics related. And so, but of course, that's very broad and wide. It includes so much else when you think about how you're going to regulate economic business behavior, right? You need laws, you need enforcement, you need courts, you need to neo-functionally spill over to other areas like justice and home affairs. If you're going to have a single market, then you have to have common borders. You have to enforce those borders. You have to erase the borders between countries in the European community. So there is a single market, right? You need to have a police to enforce. You need to monitor. You need to come up with regulations for how to address people who want to come into your single market and work there. You need to think about justice and home affairs, right? So since the end of the Cold War and the expansion of the European Union into Eastern Europe and also Malta and Cyprus, before that, of course, they also brought in the rich countries that were not formally part of the European Union. Austria, Finland, and Sweden joined in the 1990s. And then the former communist countries joined, along with Cyprus and Malta, beginning 2004 and 2007. And Croatia joined in 2013, right? But still, most of the laws of the European Union focus on business and economics. 80% still focus on business and economics. 80% of that acquis communautaire focuses on business and economics. And and the European Union has different levels of responsibility in certain policy areas, more in some and less in others. Like, for example, supposedly the European Union is responsible for agriculture. Agriculture policy, like what do you do with your farmers? How do you help your farmers? How do you regulate their economic behavior, their economic activity, is governed by the European Union, not by Germany, not by Italy, not by France, not by Belgium, by the European Union. And this is a sensitive topic for the same reason the FTA between South Korea and the United States is a sensitive topic, right? You know, I was talking to somebody on Twitch TV a few days ago, and I noticed, I told them several years ago, when the FTA between South Korea and the European Union was reached, suddenly you saw all this beer, European beer, pour into the 7-Eleven here, or the Home Plus market, and Green Farm, well, I don't know what Green Farm is, because that of the FTA with the European Union. But the FTAs that South Korea makes with the European Union and the United States still limits the application to rice. The Korean government believes it must maintain the ability to produce its own food. Yeah, they will import rice from California. Yeah, they will import food from other countries, but they will protect some of their farmers because it's a national security issue. If you don't have farmers, what if there's a terrible world conflict? What if there's a world conflict between China and the United States, and they use their navies to block trade? And of course, once you turn a farm into a building or a home or a real estate, you can't go back to taking that building down and making, again, that land into a farm. So you can't just, if you lose your farms, you lose them. It's very difficult to go back to farming if the land is turned into other uses, like office buildings. And so agriculture, this is the justification for European protection of their farmers through the Common Agricultural Policy. So the Common Agricultural Policy was adopted in the early 1960s at the demand of Charles de Gaulle. That Charles de Gaulle wanted the European Economic Community to focus on agriculture. And this has been a big topic of controversy. Let's see if I can find it here. Common. No, see, it's just, I don't know. Using this computer is always, you know, it's different from my office. So, next. Can I find the next one? Where's the next one? Well, if I just type it like this. Yeah, the Common Agricultural Policy. This is maybe the most well-known and famous policy of the European Union. Not the only one, but the most well-known and famous and controversial. The Common Agricultural Policy, the CAP. And this one was begun in the early 1960s before Britain joined the European Union. That the French, particularly under Charles de Gaulle, president of France, wanted Europe to protect its farmers. And this was at a time when a much bigger percentage of the population of France were farmers. Today, of course, in these developed countries, including Korea, you see much smaller proportion of the population working in farming. But I think at the time when France demanded that the European Economic Community protect and shield its farmers from too much international competition, and that means the United States. Right? American farmers are the most productive because of American benefits, like lots of rain and lots of land. This is a big source of controversy today because the common agricultural policy is a big source of controversy for free trade agreements between the European Union and other countries in the World Trade Organization. European Union's protection of its farmers stands out or appears to be a violation in the view of many people of the principles of free trade. But it's not just the Europeans that support their farmers. The Americans spend billions and billions of dollars every year supporting their farmers as well. India, for example, is not going to open up its farming sector to imports from the United States and European Union as long as the European Union and the United States subsidize their own farmers. So it's a big obstacle to moving forward in World Trade Organization discussions, what to do about farming. And as I said, it's one of the areas in which the United States economy is most efficient. And so this is one of the big sources of complaint that American presidents and governments have towards the European Union is the European Union's restriction on imports from American agricultural producers. And the reason why I mention this as being controversial, this is also a big focus of discontent in Britain, that many Brexit people, Brexit advocates, were pointing to the common agricultural policy as something that Britain did not benefit from. At least a third of the European Union budget is spent. At least a third of that budget of 150 billion euros is spent to support farmers. But Britain doesn't have as many farmers as France, and certainly doesn't have as many farmers as Poland or Bulgaria or Romania. I mean, when I first went to Bulgaria in 1994, the number I saw in the media was that around 30%, maybe a third of Bulgarians were somehow directly connected to farming. That a third of the population of Bulgaria were still farmers, whatever that means. I mean, does that include like the local village 7-Eleven? Well, not 7-Eleven, local village store that sells beer and food to the farmers. I ain't part of the farming sector, but that was the number always thrown around. 30 to 33% of the population of Poland, of Bulgaria, and Romania were farmers. What is the percent of the population that are farmers in South Korea? Some small percentage, like 3.5%. Same in the US, about 3.5% of the United States population are farmers. Over 30% of the population were farmers in Poland and in Bulgaria in the early 1990s. And that has to stop. That has to change, right? As Poland modernizes, as Bulgaria modernizes, these farmers are going to reduce in number. In other words, a lot of people are going to lose their farms. They're going to give them up because they can't compete, they can't make money, and this is highly, highly, highly stressful. Highly difficult. I told you, the changes these countries are going through in Eastern Europe are astronomically unprecedented. I mean, it's even much worse than the changes that Germany and Japan had to go to after the end of World War II. As I said, right, when the fascist regimes in Germany and Italy and Japan were removed, I mean, there still were capitalists. There always was capitalism under Hitler in Germany, under Mussolini in Italy, under Hirohito in Japan. There are always still capitalists and banks and institutions for running a for-profit economy, right? A capital-based economy. This did not exist in Poland and Bulgaria, or very little extent in Poland and Bulgaria when communism fell. So they learned everything. And the point I'm trying to make is high stress, intense anxiety, despair, depression, fear characterize polarizes these societies. Something like 12 to 15% of the Bulgarian population left Bulgaria. Can you imagine that? Over 10%, at least over 10% of the Bulgarian population left Bulgaria to go to Germany, to go to Italy, to go to Australia, to go to Canada, to go to the United States. Why? To take a vacation? No, because they had to make money. And not just for themselves, for their families. They were making money and sending the money back to Bulgaria, to their old parents and grandparents who lost their jobs or lost their farms. Right? And so the point I'm making is that this common agricultural policy is really important, not only in the 1960s when the European Economic Community was formed, it's important today in terms of calming people down, trying to keep the new, young democratic regimes in Poland and Bulgaria and Romania stable by making their farming populations happy or supportive of the European Union. So this is really important for today in the European Union as you're still trying to transform the Polish economy, the Bulgarian economy, the Romanian economy into modern developed societies. So I checked a year ago when I taught this class, the percent of the population that are farmers in Poland I saw was listed as 15%. So in 30 years, since 1989 to 2019, the percent of the Polish population of Poland, there's 40 million people in Poland, it's the same size as Spain in population, right? In 30 years, the percent of population that were farmers in Poland dropped by half. And this has helped organize that process, keep it certainly a source of support for those farmers that are doing well in Poland. The more productive farmers, the more smart farmers, the bigger farms, they love this. But keep in mind, this is not free market, free trade policy. This is government subsidies and support for farmers, including incentives to push them in certain directions and to help poor farmers move on to other forms of economic activity and keeping everyone feeling like they are not going to lose their livelihood. They don't live in a world completely of fear and anxiety. I'm not saying this is easy, but this has been critically important in trying to transform or transition these former communist countries to being stable, advanced, developed economic economies and democracies. And Americans have difficulty understanding that. This isn't just keeping the French happy. I mean, the size of the French population in agriculture is much less now. It's about what? I think last time I checked, 4%, 5%, small. But it's about keeping peace in Europe so that Poland doesn't support a Polish Mussolini. So Romania doesn't support a Romanian Hitler out of anxiety and fear and insecurity because I'm a peasant farmer and I've lost everything. And there is somebody promising easy answers and labeling people to blame. That the blame is NATO, the blame is the European Union, the blame is on the Jews, the blame is on the gypsies. That's why my life is so miserable. Calm that down. So the point is, the European Union is not going to give this up. They always respond to Donald Trump. When Donald Trump says, we want you to open up your markets to imports from the United States, they say no. They just bluntly say, we're not doing that. And my problem with the media is that they don't explain that, again, this is ultimately a policy for political peace in Europe. You don't want your farming population, your rural population, to become radical. And it's worked. It has worked. I mean, again, this is always a problem with talking about the European Union. The European Union never gets credit for its successes. Almost never gets credit for its successes because its successes are preventing bad things from happening. You say, well, Poland doesn't look very democratic today. They have this authoritarian Trump-type government in power. But the situation, like I always tell my students, the situation can always be worse. You might not like the current government in the United States, or the current government in Bulgaria, or the current government in Poland, but you could always get a worse government. You could always have a worse situation. And the European Union has done a good job of convincing Polish farmers and Polish business people that the European Union is something to defend, something to promote, and something that they are committed to. And I'm looking for my other mask, and I can't find it. I thought I brought two with me. But, oh, there it is. And that is really important. And the common agricultural policy has played an important role in persuading the Polish public, much of the Polish public, that we might not like that the European Union requires gay rights and recognition of gay marriage. But we like the money from the common agricultural policy. So yeah, we complain, we like the benefits of this. And this is a topic that I'm thinking about now because I have to write another paper for a convention on Eastern Europe. The paper's due next week. And I'm writing about the common agricultural policy in Bulgaria. I have to work on this paper now. And my theme of this paper is focusing on the New York Times is a big newspaper that is the most influential news source of news media in the United States because of its impact on the elite. And there were 2 or 3 articles in the New York Times last year about the corruption around the common agricultural policy. So much corruption. So many cases of the European Union giving this money to Bulgaria, and Bulgaria was highlighted, and the Czech Republic, and Slovakia, and the politicians were taking the money, and they were directing the money towards their friends and their cronies and their political allies, and they were using that to build political support, and they were using that to help their friends. And this is not correct. That this is evidence of European Union money being used to bribe people to support the governments in these countries. And the New York Times tried to interview the members of the European Commission responsible for agriculture and the governments. And the European Commission representatives were embarrassed and nervous and defensive. But they say, remember, the European Union bureaucracy is small. They rely upon the governments of Bulgaria, Poland, Romania, France, Belgium, to implement the policies that the European Union adopts, to spend the money that the European Union allocates through its formal process. They give the money to Bulgaria. They say, okay, this is for your Bulgarian farmers. This is part of the common agricultural policy. And the Bulgarian government implements the policy, not the Commission. Like I said, right? The entire European Commission bureaucracy is about the size of the Ministry of Culture in France. They rely on the Bulgarian government, the Czech government, the Polish government to take this money and use it the way that the European Union decided it should be used. And guess what? They use the money, the governments use the money to support their friends. to support their allies and supporters inside their country. Shocked. Because I'm trying to be funny. I'm trying to be cynical. Of course it's political. They want to make sure that these rulers in Bulgaria, and Czech Republic, and Slovakia, and Poland, and Hungary, they support the European Union. They support being in the European Union, even as they fight with the European Union over LGBTQ rights or treatment of gypsies. And the European Union will explicitly come out and say that. Well, I mean, they really can't officially say that, but that's what they do. But I just remember, I have these articles from last year, New York Times, and they were, look at this corruption in Bulgaria, and in Slovakia, and in Czech Republic, through the Common Agricultural Policy. Oh my gosh, it is being used to strengthen Viktor Orban in Hungary. It's being used to strengthen Babiš, the Prime Minister of the Czech Republic. Well, these people have reputations of having been corrupt. The European Union says, there's limits to what we can do about what the Hungarians organize themselves and decide how to do things. We're just a small organization in terms of bureaucracy. I mean, I never checked this, but supposedly in the 1930s, a big source of support for Hitler were the German farmers. German farmers were working, the farming class in Germany were strong supporters of Hitler. And that's something they all remember. Keep the farmers, the world population satisfied. And this common agricultural policy is critically important for them. And of course, it began long before communism fell in Eastern Europe, but that's its function today. To help orderly, peaceful reforms and changes in these societies with market capitalist forces at work, but with political direction. And that's a standard European and Korean and Chinese and Japanese, and as I said, European perspective. Of course, the government should oversee the economy, should guide the economy. Of course. And you say, well, no, for Americans, no. No, the economy is a naturally functioning process, according to neoclassical liberalism. Right? Human beings are naturally inclined towards business, and you need a government for police and courts to put bad people in jail. But business and economics is natural. You don't need central government direction for it. Koreans, Chinese, Germans, I don't know enough about Belgians, French. No. The state, l'État, is supposed to be the brain of the body politique. And you Koreans know this. I mean, you see here, you Europeans should have a strong sense of this. The Korean government ministries are behind the scenes, pulling the strings everywhere all the time. That's why I'm here in front of you right now, today. Because the Korean government, Ministry of Education and Human Affairs, that's the official title, decided 12 years ago, okay, it's time to globalize Korean universities. So we're going to bring in students from Belgium, from France, we're going to bring in professors from the United States and elsewhere, because we globalize the Korean university system. So, there was a newspaper, the Korean Ministry of Education contacted Yosun Little and said, hey, here's some Little. I'm the Korean Ministry official. You do that yearly ranking of Korean universities. And you rank them as best. Why don't you put your ranking of how many foreign professors they have, which universities have, how many classes are taught in English, using So they say, yes, sir. Yes. 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 You will do that. And he did it overnight in the spring of 2009, sorry, 11 years ago. In the American newspapers, there was a flood of great universities advertising to hire American professors. And that's how it's not just Korea, it's how all of Asia, well, East Asia is organized, in Europe. But Americans, they have difficulty understanding this. And this is a topic for an American history class or American foreign policy class. Americans like to believe that the government is basically a necessary evil. You have to have policemen and courts to put criminals in jail, but governments suck. And if you let the miracle of the marketplace, the invisible hand of the market, that will solve most of the world problems. So the New York Times reflects that. Oh, look how political this is. It is so political. No shit. Sorry to use American slang. Yeah, it's political. It's all political. It's a peace strategy. European Union is a peace strategy for Europe. And you know, peace means social interaction, and 80% of social interaction is business and economics related. So that's what I got to write this paper on. And I got to, you know, update my knowledge of Bulgaria. So, I mean, I wanted to get you excited about public policies. Remember, this is a part of, these are the tools of a peace strategy for the bloodiest part of the world in history, Europe. Okay, so how are we going to work for peace? So they decided to work with economics and markets as the focus of European integration. Supposedly Jean Monnet once said, oh, if I had to start and do it all over again, I would have started with culture. I don't know what he means by that. Does it mean education policy with the main focus? I don't know. But they started with business economics. And of course, you're trying to integrate markets across states, strong conditions of nationalism, right? So some of the policies are trying to build markets, a single market. Again, long history of nationalism, of economic national security concern, of concern that we don't want to become too dependent on our neighbors, because we might have to go to war. So economically, we have to be more independent to overcome that centuries of history of fear and preparation for war. Yeah, we'll do business, but not too much business, because we might have to go to war with you next year or next decade. And so they've had to deal with policies that try to protect producers from market forces. And this all takes politics. This all takes negotiation. This all takes small, slow steps, little steps, incremental steps, through bargaining and diplomacy and negotiation, through trade-offs, to make a single market. It doesn't just emerge magically when you snap your fingers and we have a single market. It has to be built. It means dismantling thousands of laws and building thousands of new laws, and agreeing on how to do that, and fighting and arguing over how to do that. And some policies try to cushion the impact of market forces. So the common agricultural policy tries to cushion the impact of market forces. You know, the European Union has more influence, like the most influence, over agricultural policy and competition policy, but not so much in other areas. Like, for example, we are seeing, you might say, well, what about health policy? Because, you know, having a healthy market, public health concerns is necessary in order to let's see if I can find this right. It says here, I gotta share screen again. This is the news report. Again, we've got this gigantic experiment going on. Single market, that means, what are the 4 freedoms? Hodion, what are the 4 freedoms? Freedom of movement of goods, capital, people, and labor, and finance. Those are the 4 freedoms. Don't forget the 4 freedoms, right? But now we have coronavirus travel restrictions, right? So European Union countries are expected to adopt guidelines on, let me get this out of the way. Next week, this is from just a couple days ago, right? Aimed at coordinating their varying coronavirus travel measures according to EU officials and diplomats involved in the talks. But the effort will stop well short of a harmonization of rules as countries try to keep control over how they tackle a resurgence of the disease. I mean, travel restrictions interfere with the 4 freedoms, particularly the freedom of movement of people, labor, right? And this report highlights how still the European Union does not use the ordinary legislative procedure, the community principle, in making these policies in public health. They have to be agreed unanimously by all 27 member states still. And keep in mind, it's a legacy of the nation state. We talked last week about Europe as being the first to create modern nation states, right? Many generations ago. And there are certain areas that are highly sensitive, like your military security and your police and court control, but also how you protect the well-being and lives of your people from sickness, from abroad, right? This would be a very sensitive topic as well. And so still, it cites here that even though you think, well, this could be regulated under the market, the single market, it's not. Well, it is part of the single market, but they still have to decide these common travel policies for the coronavirus by everybody agreeing. It's all not by qualified majority voting in council and then with the parliament also voting and then amending and negotiating. No, not yet. Maybe they will. You can well imagine that after this experience today, maybe 5, 10 years ago, they will, but they don't have it yet. And if they're going to negotiate that and move in that direction, it'll be lots and lots of hard political work involving lots and lots of negotiations involving many, many people. Tedious, difficult, long, sloppy, complex negotiations to come up with a single set of public health measures in dealing with pandemics. It won't just happen overnight. That's building a market, right? I mean, you're a German and you're thinking about, well, am I really going to rely upon Greek monitors to monitor whether or not people can come into Germany from Greece and trust the Greeks and tell me that they're not infected? No! People are so corrupt. They're so lazy, blah, 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 all stereotypes, right? Nationalism, stereotyping, emotion, they all go together, stereotyping of each other. And the nation-state institutions institutionalize those stereotypes. What is a German? A German is somebody who's not French. Unfortunately, traditionally. I'll try to overcome that, and it's difficult. And it goes on here. I won't, read it all. I just wanted to highlight some points here. So they're coming with a common text, laying out the criteria on how a region should be color-coded, red, green, or yellow, focusing on thresholds for new cases per 100,000 people, as well as positive test results as a percentage of total tests. And the European Center for Disease Prevention and Control gathers much of the data from national agencies. Again, what do I highlight that? What are we trying to do in the European Union? We're trying to create a European community. How do we create a central government authority? Well, we'll look at other federations, like the United States of America as a federal government with lots of strong state powers, like I'm from the state of Ohio. Anybody in the United States here? Which state are you in? Maryland, he's been to Maryland. Maryland, Ohio, they have the power as states to kill people. To charge people with murder and find them guilty, kill them. That's a lot of power for a province. You can't do that. Kilmigo can't execute people for murder. Ohio can execute people for murder. And it does. But they have a strong central government, and they have a Center for Disease Prevention and Control in the United States. And so the European Union, when they leaders decide, well, we need to come up with a European public health policy, because that's ultimately tied up with the single market. How do we do that? We'll learn from other countries. And the United States Center for Disease Prevention and Control, that's the really good example. So we'll do that. We'll copy that model. We'll make some changes here and there. Make it fit better for us. And so they have a European Center for Disease Prevention and Control. The US CDC, Center for Disease and Control, used to be, until Trump started to attack it, according to the New York Times, the world standard for an effective public health monitoring organization. It was considered the best in the world. And it's a strategy. European Union is a political strategy for peace. So they're very conscious about this. There's a European Food and Drug Administration, just like there's a Food and Drug Administration in the United States that monitors drugs and testing and quality. And while EU countries will agree to give 48 hours warning before changing travel restrictions in response to worsening COVID-19 conditions, for example, imposing additional quarantines or testing requirements, they will not harmonize requirements for travelers. So Belgium, France, Germany, even though they're all part of the Schengen area means the area where you do not need to stop and show your identification when you cross borders. Like, you're French, right? So if you drive to Belgium, they drive to Belgium the same way you drive from Kilmego to Tilson, the neighboring province. What's the neighboring province to the south of Kilmego? What's it called? Huh? Guangzhou? What's it called? Suncheon, right? You just get in your car and drive. You can do that in Europe, but that's only since the mid-1980s, when I was your age. It took hard political work to create the Schengen area. We Belgians and French are going to let anybody come from Germany drive across the border without having to stop, without having to check. Okay, man, we'll do that. That's hard to do. And so even though Belgium and France and Germany are part of the Schengen area, they still do not have common guidelines for dealing with travelers. And the reason I mention this is because during this kind of world emergency, restrictions have been put in place in the Schengen area. If you do drive to Belgium from France, you will be stopped. Now, as of 6 months ago, but this is because of national emergency. This is supposed to end at some point. But there's these news reports about how these old border markers that have been abandoned for decades are being dusted off, and old facilities being reopened and closed since the 1980s. Because of the coronavirus travel restrictions. So just to show you, this is an area where still the ordinary legislative procedure does not apply. But they still cooperate. They still try to seek consensus. They do the best they can. What does it say here? They will have a 48-hour waiting period, and they're going to have a color-coded text, about who's, and so they are negotiating. So Health and related policies are fully sovereign for countries in the bloc. In other words, they do not fall under the ordinary legislative procedure. Right? You don't adopt them by majority vote. If you're going to adopt them, it has to be by all 27 members agreeing. The Union does not have a legal basis on which to force policies onto its members, as it does on matters such as monetary affairs or competition, the single market. Hungary, for example, said in September that it would shut itself off to travel from all EU countries apart from its political allies, known as the Visegrad Group countries, namely Slovakia, Czech Republic, and Poland, without the decision being justified by health criteria. And the EU officials called Hungary's move a contravention of the principles of free movement of people, the four freedoms, remember, and non-discrimination within the bloc. So what are you going to do? You're going to punish Hungary? You're going to arrest the Hungarian Prime Minister? You're going to call the European Union police and say, arrest Viktor Orban, Prime Minister of Hungary, put him in jail, fine, or at least fine him. So, it's time for another poll. Respond to the following statement. The European Union in the world is not a nuclear superpower, not a military superpower, it's a soft power, a soft civilian superpower. The European Union is a soft civilian superpower. So let's go to polls, and hopefully I can find these polls. Oh no, don't want to do something stupid because I'll shut down the computer if I'm not careful. Because I've done that before. So I thought I had that ready to go. And I don't see it here. Ah! Huh, I thought I had it. Well, I don't see it. Well, okay. Let me see if I can do this now. Yeah, this is kind of dangerous. Let me go like this. No. Well, maybe not, because it's just, I don't want to do something I'm going to regret here. I thought I had that set up. Well, I guess I didn't. Yeah. Okay, well, maybe some other time. Okay, so, because I don't want to do something I'm going to regret. All right, so, back to the notes. Let me see what else I have planned here. The common agricultural policy is a source of a lot of controversy, but let's get through the basic notes here. Benchmarking. Benchmarking means, like you see at work in dealing with the coronavirus, the European countries look and watch each other and ask themselves, what's the best way to contact trace people who might be or might not be infected with coronavirus? Who's doing the best job? Oh, Germany! So, we are Italian, we are Greek. Let's watch the Germans, because the Germans set the benchmark for successfully dealing with the coronavirus. So benchmarking means the use of comparisons with other states and organizations on any policy, not just coronavirus, right? Like pension reform or employment practices, with the aim of improving performance by learning from the experience of others. You say, well, that's cool. Remember, over centuries and generations of hatred, of fighting war, recovering from war, preparing for war, the notion that I, as a German, am going to learn something from French? Are you crazy? I, as a Greek, am going to learn something from the Bulgarians? What? But European integration sets an environment, a political environment where this is easier to do. because of the undermining of nationalism, because of the attitudes of cooperation which are increasingly institutionalized in the European Union. It's easier for countries to want and expected to learn and borrow from each other. You understand? And this may be one of the most underrated but most important aspects of European integration, because it doesn't require any kind of formal institution to say, well, let's look at how the Belgians are doing it. Let's look at how the Italians are doing it. They're doing a good job. I like that. Let's do that here in Greece. And people are not ready to say, what are you, some kind of a Italian agent, a spy working for Italy here in Greece, advocating Italian ways of doing things? We don't do things the way Italians do. We're Greeks. You don't hear that as much in the European Union as you hear in the United States, for example. The Americans are always suspicious about European socialism. We don't want to follow the European way because the Europeans supposedly, we don't love freedom as much as the Americans. That kind of sounds silly. Stereotyping is silly. Directives. This is the most common form of European legislation, right? It specifies the goals to be achieved. The European Union, through typically the ordinary legislative process, decides what goals the European Union wants to achieve, say on climate change or reducing greenhouse gas emissions, and issues a directive. And this directive is then sent to France, Italy, Germany, Greece, Romania, and they're told, implement the directive. Do it the Romanian way, the French way, the Greek way, the Italian way, just do it, and do it within 3 years. And do it according to European principles, and then the Commission will investigate to see, did you really do it in Italy? We're hearing reports from civil society, non-governmental organizations that Italy's not really doing enough to improve the conditions of the gypsies, the Roma. That's the sensitive topic. Nobody likes the gypsies in Europe. The Tsigani? Gitano? Nobody likes the gypsies. Bulgaria, Greece, France, Italy. But there are human rights organizations and others that are looking and trying to help these people. And they say, hey, European Commission, the Italian government is not doing what it promised to do under the directive, European Union directive, blah, 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 blah. It hasn't done it. Oh, they haven't done it. Oh, you better do it, Italy, or we're going to sue you in front of the European Commission, the European Court of Justice. Sorry. So to rely upon non-governmental organizations, as well as official people, to monitor the implementation of these directives, right? Eurozone, well, we already talked about that. It includes 19 member states. Is anybody else going to join the Eurozone? Bulgaria desperately wants in the Eurozone, but Bulgaria may join, but they have such serious problem with corruption. European Eurozone member states say, no, Bulgaria, we don't trust that you have yet the ability to control and monitor your economy because corruption is so bad, it's too easy to bribe people in the government and in the courts to get what you want if you're a business person or a mafioso or whomever. So I haven't seen the last countries to join were Lithuania. They got serious problem with corruption too. They're desperate to keep the ties with the rest of the European Union more intense because they've got Russia next door, the former imperial occupier. Yeah, I don't know who else. You know, Sweden is not in the Eurozone. Denmark is not in the Eurozone. Finland is in the Eurozone because, well, Federalism, it constitutes a constitutional arrangement. Oh, whoops. It divides the powers between the central government and the state governments. And the degree of federalism in the European Union is weaker than in Canada or Australia or the United States. But in some areas, you do see the European Union acts like a federal authority, particularly, for example, in the Eurozone. The European Central Bank looks more and more like the US Federal Reserve Bank that governs the US banking system. The European Central Bank is starting to look like a real federal institution, European federal institution. It's becoming even more so in response to the coronavirus crisis, economic crisis. Market, a system of economic exchange. It brings together buyers and sellers of goods and services. Most markets use money as a means of exchange. Keep in mind, I just go back to what I was saying earlier. Americans think that's natural. People naturally engage in exchange of goods and services. It's just natural, like breathing, like falling in love, like starting a family. You don't need a government to make it happen. No, in Asia and in Europe, government makes it happen. It guides it to make sure it's most efficient in achieving the national interest. However, that's defined. However, that is subjectively defined in 2020 versus 1950 versus 1920. Late industrializers like Germany and France, Germany in particular, developed after it was unified in the 1870s, again with central government control, guiding that process. Not only because they wanted to uplift the well-being of the German people, to lift them out of poverty, but because we have to prepare for war. And that's the only way you can legitimate American government intervention in its economy. Cold War, the threat of the Soviet Union, communism, Russia! Oh, Soviet Union, I'm supposed to say, Soviet Union's gone. China! China! So we have to have government intervention in the economy because we've got to prepare in case we have to contain China. These are the words coming out of Washington today. And so much of the U.S. economic leadership in the world, including in big tech, internet technology, was developed with the help of the Defense Department, the U.S. military, the U.S. Defense Department. Boeing became the big aircraft manufacturer in the world because of that guaranteed relationship with the U.S. military during the Cold War. So that's what the Europeans say. The Americans say, hey, you Europeans are subsidizing Airbus, and they're taking jobs and orders and business away from Boeing by subsidizing Airbus with loans and government loans from government banks. And Airbus, it's not fair, it's not fair. And the Europeans say, you've been doing it for 50 years with your Defense Department of the United States. We're just more open about it. We don't hide it or cover it up with military national emergency concerns. Non-tariff barriers, dealing with price fluctuations. Price fluctuations regulate markets. You can tell, therefore you need to have a currency. You need to have money, a stable currency, if you're going to use prices and price changes to regulate supply and demand behavior by the millions and millions of people who live their lives 80% of the time doing business with each other. Markets require property rights. In other words, you have to have a strong state where you can have enforcement that this property is mine and you cannot take it. You need to have a strong government to enforce property rights, regulation, and law. In order for it to function properly, you need to have a strong political central authority to make any market. You don't believe me? Go look at what Russia. Russia is a place without a strong central government with rule of law. It's a mafia. It's a gigantic mafia state. It is so corrupt, you can buy and sell anything there. And Bulgaria, was a little version of Russia. Non-tariff barriers, regulations that raise the cost of imports by enforcing national standards and requirements. Yeah, like for example, a non-tariff barrier would be the coronavirus travel restrictions. That's interfering with the four freedoms. So naturally, you would expect the European Union, and particularly the European Commission, to say, we've got to work on this because the coronavirus, it's going to be an issue for the world for another 3 years, 36 months, are the estimates I'm hearing in the news media. This is going to be around for another 3 years. Assuming vaccines come out, and public policy, it is a course of action that a government takes by action or inaction regarding some public issue or problem. So Americans, like I told you, Americans just assume that business and economics is natural. That's not an area of public policy. No. From this perspective, it is. If the government decides not to do something, not to intervene in the market, that is a policy choice. That is subject to democratic accountability. Yeah, compared to national states, the European Union budget is pretty small, right? I mean, U.S. government's budget is over $2,000 billion a year. The U.S. central government spends, just the federal government. That's the European Union budget. And like I said, almost half of that goes to policies that the Parliament does not approve. A third of that goes to the common agricultural policy, supporting farmers. Oh, it says here the U.S. national budget was 3.3 trillion. I guess I thought it was. I didn't know it was that big. That's $3,300 billion. Okay, so the European Union, again, compared to the United States central government, how does it raise money compared to the Canadian federal government or the Australian federal government? It can't directly tax people yet. The European Union generates that $158 billion. Again, this is all changing as we speak with the coronavirus pandemic, right? The European Commission is now going to borrow 800 billion euros and just give it to the member states. Let's see if it works. But until now, the European Union just got money by putting tariffs on imports, like agriculture, into the European Union. Value-added tax. This is calculated on any kind of purchase you make in Europe. There's a formula for determining how much of that purchase price goes to tax that the government of Germany or Belgium or France then turns over to the European Union by raising the money through value-added tax. It's small, like 0.16%, something like that. And national contributions to the budget. The Germans put out most of the money. Not the most, but they put out a disproportionate amount of money to make the European Union work. Why? Because of their history. Because they have benefited the most of any country from European integration, and they want this to succeed. Every several years, there's an attempt to come up with a general financial plan called the financial framework. And then within the financial framework, there's an annual budget. The financial framework is a focus of a lot of media attention because, you know, it focuses on the European Union's goals and priorities. It is decided by unanimity in the Council. So the Council of the European Union has decided by consensus. And the Parliament must consent, and it establishes the overall expenditure level. So again, as I speak, we may be seeing revolutionary transformations in the European Union institutions due to the coronavirus crisis. But that's day by day. And then there's the annual budget within the financial framework. And this co-decided by the majorities of both in the Parliament and the Council. Okay, yeah, typically the financial framework lasts around six years. It is a highly intergovernmental process. Everybody's fighting for their national interest, according to the liberal intergovernmentalism, especially regarding the common agricultural policy. The negotiations over the 2014-20 financial framework were very contentious. Again, this is basically being thrown out the window with the coronavirus pandemic. They said they're going to reduce their budget expenditure, and well, we'll see what happens. Britain's departure has left a gap of 12 billion euros. I guess they're going to fill that gap with borrowing money on financial markets. Okay, we need to have enough time for the debate, and so we want to find a good place to stop here. Directives need to be transposed into national legal codes, and that means the directives have to be implemented by the way the Italians do it, the Maltese do it, the Danish do it, and it's different in each country. And some countries are better than others than doing that. Italy has a bad reputation of being slow in actually transposing the directives it agreed to. And the European Commission is watching, and if they're too slow, the European Commission may take action, even threatening to sue Italy before the European Court of Justice. So, yeah, this open method of coordination, that's, I guess, how you might describe what's going on now with the coronavirus travel restrictions. Jurisdiction of the European Union varies from policy area to policy area. As I told you, common agricultural policy is an area where it has jurisdiction, but in other areas, it is European Union has less competence or shares competence with the member states. That's the term. It's a legal term. Does the European Union have competency? In other words, does it have legal power, authority to intervene in that policy area? And it shares competency with the member states in certain areas. Other areas are very focused on the national competency without European Union involvement, like taxation policy. Although, who knows where this will go with the current crisis. And so they give you a list of the competencies. All right, since I want to make sure, since this is our first big debate, that we do it right. And so let's share the screen again and remind us what the debaters are. And Mainly Sinclair, are you here? Okay, and what about Nara and Jong Sung Hyun? Oh, you're both here. All four of you are here. Hooray! So, now, since you're all here, you could speak in front of the class, and everybody who's on Zoom would be able to watch and listen through the projector. Do you have a PowerPoint presentation? Do you have okay, you do have a PowerPoint presentation, which means maybe you won't be standing in front of the class because you want to manipulate your Zoom screen. So as I go through this, so since this is in Korean language, I need some help for somebody to show me how to share screen. So someone, what do I click on this button in order to allow Nara and Jungsun and Clara and Melis to share their screen? What do I click on in order to allow share screen besides me? Usually it's under the share screen, right? Like, yeah, there.
But
There's no share screen option?
yeah, it's just like share your sound. Share your computer sound. And this is just like share in the full screen.
Oh,
Mm,
you don't see it there, huh? Okay, but you see, I can do it. Let me see what happens if I try to sign up on my computer, and then I sign in, and okay, that's what's going on today. And join now.
okay.
This might not be what I want to happen, but so viewing options. And I share screen. I thought it was
Here.
Huh? You did. Where was it? Where was it?
I need to shut down the share.
Okay.
Screen share.
Okay.
And
Okay, we found it. Okay, we found it. Okay, so it's now available. Okay, so it's now available for you people to share the screen. And so we need to remind us about who's debating. So Pro, Melis and Juvan, however you want to do this, you can sit at your desk, you can come up front with your laptops and stand in front of your computer. What? You don't have any what?
We don't have.
You don't have what? Oh, you don't. Okay, you don't have a PowerPoint, and you just make your presentation. Why don't you? But you can still stand in front of the class and. Okay. So Pro doesn't have any kind of PowerPoint slides, but Nara but Khan do. So Melis and Clara, do you want to stand in front of the classroom and make your presentation? You should. You can use the microphone as well if you want to. Okay. All right. Okay. So, but you know, what's the matter? Do you want to stand in front of the class?
Non, moi je reste assis.
Okay, okay. All right. So I have not been debating, so I'll keep it down. And so, Pro, begin.
C'est bon. Mais il va pas longtemps.
I can begin.
So I affirm the resolution that the European Union should strive to create a European culture. To begin with, the main issue nowadays within the European Union as a regional organization is related to the absence of cohesion amongst member states. Indeed, there is an apparent lack of European identity, which is a gap that should be bridged for the European Union to thrive in the future in a sustainable way. As a European citizen myself, I personally feel as a French citizen first, which is quite revealing about the sense of belonging people living in member states may have towards the European Union as well. So for instance, few people would know how to sing the European anthem, even though it is one of the main symbols of the European Union, along with the European flag or the European Day that occurs on the 9th of May each year. And more generally, the percentage of European citizens voting at the European elections last year was also revealing. So according to the newspaper from Le Monde, the voting rates have been highest since 20 years and are estimated at only 51% for the 27 member states of the European Union without the UK, which basically underlines that the other 49% of citizens do not feel particularly involved in European policy-making processes. So to put it in a nutshell, what is making people feel like they belong to the European Union is mainly the common currency, so the euro. Since the Eurozone was launched, meaning countries that are part of the Economic and Monetary Union. However, the euro has been through tough times with the subprime crisis in 2007, which has played a major role in making Euroscepticism rise as well as economic uncertainty. Hence, I do believe that the European Union should strive to create a European culture in order for member states' citizens to feel a stronger sense of European citizenship, which would eventually lead to a better cohesion amongst member states and thus efficiency of the European Union. So the way to achieve this goal could be through a common European education, since the European Union has been founded after the World War II, and many young people take this regional organization for granted and do not necessarily realize that this regional organization is still very much active and influent. So firstly, the European Union should focus on informing new generation more precisely about the functioning of the European Union, benefits on member states, as well as its influence at the international scale. And secondly, the European Union should recreate a founding myth so that the European Union's current image and reputation for young generations would not only rely on its historical successes and achievements, such as the suppression of border checks and freedom to travel. And there is indeed a need to emphasize the currentness of the European Union so that the member state citizens feel involved and aware of decision-making processes and political issues.
Okay. Did everybody hear that?
Okay, can I start now? Okay. If we would only talk about the economic cultures, it makes sense as such will promote integration, development, and cooperation. As we all know, the EU is vying for not only economic but also political unification. We, however, on the basis of the definition of culture and realist perspectives, would like to say that creating what is fundamentally impossible. To make our statement clear, we would like to define what culture is. This is how Merriam-Webster defines cultures. Simply put, it is shared values that are passed down to generation. As Kuhn, we would like to say that prose tense is too romantic. Every single person has an identity such as nationality, race, religion, and also, with that in mind, Europe boosts great diversity. It is beautiful in a way, but in more realistic view, it hampers the unification of identities. Why? Because nationalities will take in assimilation. After all, who decides what the shared European culture should be? Germany, France, rock user? Common currency, culture, and policy can bring efficiency and stability, which then can promote development, education, and infrastructure as understanding and cooperation is highlighted. But again, this can be interpreted as a propaganda fabricated by the powerful. Realistically thinking, a European culture can be used as a tool that the powerful will use to influence the weaker. As a result, the intended stability will actually bring instabilities. Take South Korea, for instance. Even before Korea's annexation by Japan in the early 20th century, Korea has an infestation of Japanese sympathizers. They cooperate with the imperialist agenda, whether by coercion or free will. Thus, destabilizing an already ruling nation, and this is not something of the past. Even today, there are vocal zealous of the United States called 태극기 부대 in Korean. Whether their views are valid or not is a whole other subject. But the fact is, Korean political environment is being influenced by them. Next. A lot of territories in Europe are pushing a separatist movement. As an example, we would like to bring up Spain. It is well known that Catalonia and the Basque do not see eye to eye with the Spanish government. Catalonia in particular has their own unique culture. The religion gives of 17 billion euros. This is 10% of Spain's GDP annually to support the rest of the nation without any benefits. All this and more culminates in a rising civil unrest and protest. If unifying the culture of one nation has its problems, how can one possibly unify an entire continent? The EU is attempting to do so via cohesion policies. The problem is that according to the realistic, states pursue relative gains over absolute. From this point of view, vocal contingents with the big and rich state will be dissatisfied with their support for the poor new state. The EU divides the area into underdeveloped, transitional, and developed depending on the level of development. They then target underdevelopment area. As a result, those new states benefit the most from cohesion funds. The amount of aid to 11 Eastern European countries is around 192.6 billion euros, or 55% of the total. In short, more than half of the cohesion funds are used in the process of integrating European culture. In the process, the money spent on more poor states can be funds dissatisfied with the other one. In the end, if problems arise in the process of integrating culture, it is highly likely nationalism, which have been present in the big and old EU states, will emerge to the surface, which will lead to more division rather than intended harmony. Thank you.
Okay. This is like a simple question, but actually the European coin. This is a simple question. Actually the European Union was like separate, and it was like originally from the different countries. But do you think the cultural, the aspect of the culture will be integrate to the one European Union nation? Is it possible, do you think? Yeah. Unmute your microphone, Khan, and respond to his question. Yeah, that was my question. So, yeah, like, you should ask a question. So, Khan, respond. Unmute your microphone. The culture. Yeah, I'll open the microphone. Maybe you can't hear my voice, but. Unmute your microphone. No, the first one, fourth. Yeah, I released it. Yes. So maybe you can hear me. And
so, can you hear me? Yes.
Yeah.
So I believe that Mr. Kim, he asked me if culture integration is possible in the EU. I mean, they can try. I mean, they certainly did try to do it with economically, like we learned today. They try to do it politically, but in the sense of like culture, like video. I believe. So he asked if European integration, cultural integration is possible. I mean, it is possible in a way, but economically, with the market, politically, they have the shared, which we call the governance. They have a similar system, yes. But in the case of like ethnic groups, nationalities, religion, maybe occupations, like et cetera, those types of, those are really hard because those are core identities of people. And people don't like to relinquish their identities, do they? I mean, you can't just go to like a Albanian and tell them, hey, you're equal to a Serbian or you are a Serbian. They wouldn't like that. So in a sense, I would say that complete culture integration would be difficult, if not impossible.
Unmute your microphones. Release hands, clear hands, and start your videos. Let's see us. I mean, you're more likely to persuade people if we can see your face. Okay, yay! Okay, so make your rebuttal.
Yeah, so first I'd like to point out that you said that countries were too different to make an organization and to create a European culture. You said that it was because we weren't of the same nationality or same religion, but I think it's inherent to each organization that have a different country. Like you cannot have only countries with the same number of inhabitants, the same wealth. So we can't have all the same features, but being part of the EU, you also said that it was too romantic to create a European culture, but how can it be too romantic? It's the point of being part of an organization. Like the main sentence of the EU is unity in the diversity. So it's what the EU is supposed to represent. And as well, we share some kind of common history, like almost all of European countries were involved in the World War I and World War II. And yeah, then you said that you talked about separatist movement in Spain, but I don't really understand how you can relate this to the European Union, because if Catalonia wants to get out of Spain, it's not because of the EU, but because of Spain itself. You also say that Euro is a propaganda for common culture and European culture, but and it's soft power. But I don't think so. Euro is a reality. It concerns like 19 member states out of 27. We share the same money. It's not just like a soft power thing. It's more like a money and currency thing that allows country to get closer from each other and share some common features as well. Then to come back to what you say, that it was too romantic to create European culture, then I think that the EU is making effort to promote common culture through encouraging transnational relationships. It's the role of the Erasmus program and the tone twinning, and yeah. And as well, the EU is trying to produce a common culture through a Euro Festival, which create new European cultural space. Then,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. You say that you can't understand how the EU could unify an entire continent. But we don't say that every citizen have to feel the same country or whatever, but we just want to make the we just want that every European citizen can relate to the same can relate to the same feeling. Even if it's already the case, we could improve that. And then you talked about cohesion, like how a regional organization works. Then that Eastern countries were the countries that needed that were the most helped countries, but I think it's because they are the countries that just arrived the latest in the European Union, so they weren't as developed as we were at this moment. So yeah, maybe it's true that the EU should improve transparency about the functioning of the EU, so we could understand as European why this kind of country have most subsidized than the former members of the EU.
Okay. All right, Kai, you will invite me to please unmute your microphones and share your video.
So, is Colin speaking? My video happens now? Oh, don't throw it.
I'd like to thank Poe for giving us some fresh viewpoints on this situation. And I want to first start by addressing what they rebutted. Let's see. So I guess the first big problem with us saying that our statement of saying that it's too romantic is wrong, because the point of being inside the EU is all about cooperation and diversity. Yeah, that's also a double-edged sword as well, because diversity, I mean, it's a really beautiful thing, you know. I like it. Everybody loves diversity. Well, not everybody, because obviously there are like far rightists that don't like it. There's nationalists that don't like it. And there's like the underlying racism that's always there. Italy, in France, in England, everywhere. Like everywhere. The problem is about that is that you can see the big picture, but you can't finish the picture without looking at the smaller picture as well. And these small communities that have those conflicts, like race, stuff like that, that's going to really divide the nation and also the European Union as a whole. You also have a problem with us talking about Catalonia. I was saying, how does the separatist movement have to do anything with the EU? I do think that it has a lot of things to do with the EU, as a matter of fact, because you can imagine the EU as a big state and little states inside of a nation. And then let's look at Spain. It's a country, and inside of those provinces. So I guess you can like draw a conclusion that it's Spain, the country, couldn't unify its own people, its own provinces. Then let's expand it. How could the European Union, an even bigger organization, manage all these little states and all their agendas and all their opinions and all that? And then inside of those nations, there's also the provinces and there's a lot of little conflicts, so on and so forth. Let's see what else is there. So that's all I'm going to address what they said. Then I'm going to finish my statement by saying, yeah, the real underlying problem with the EU is the fact that it's nationalism. It's nationalism. They can say that they had a lot of success with politically, economically, by unifying the war-torn continent. But the fact of the matter is, there's skepticism. Not everybody believes in the virtues of the European Union. I mean, we showed the picture of those leaders that have skepticism. There's Farage, there's Marine Le Pen, there's Boris Johnson, and etc. Those people represent Euroscepticism, and I believe that it's not going to disappear because of so many diverse identities. And yeah, I guess that's what I'm saying.
Yes. Okay. So I'd like to conclude. So the EU has several ways to strengthen the sense of unity of European citizens, notably through education and the promotion of European values. Better communication regarding policymaking and decisions taken would also allow for a greater buy-in from Europeans. Furthermore, the EU could also improve the transparency of the institutions. Indeed, this would counter populist and Eurosceptic movements that criticize an inaccessible and overly elitist EU. On the other hand, strengthening European cohesion would make EU decisions much more legitimate in the eyes of European citizens. Making information on the functioning of the EU more accessible would be an opportunity to counter the rise of European populist parties that have the recurrent characteristic of proposing an an exit from the EU. Finally, a better European unity will allow the EU to improve its efficiency on certain subjects, where it is more effective to act at the regional level, such as foreign policy, the environment, or security. So for these reasons, I stand firmly in support of today's resolution that the EU should strive to create a European culture.
Okay. Yeah, you raised a lot of